I hope you guys are ready for some big pots today at Seminole Hard Rock. 510 no limit, buying for $2,500. Let's get started. I get dealt in some pretty cards right off the bat. Queen 10 of hearts from under the gun. I raised to $50. Button calls 50 and straddle calls 50 as well. So we are 3 ways to ace 10 10 rainbow. Flopping trips our first hand. Straddle checks. I bet out $60. Button calls and straddle folds. Heads up to the 9 of clubs here on the turn. I now continue for a large sizing of $300, trying to target this opponent's hands like ace-jack, ace-queen, ace-5, ace-6. All these hands I don't think he's going to be folding to a big bet here on the turn. He comes along with a call and we're heading to the river, which is the worst card in the deck. It's the ace of spades. I make a full house, but it's the bottom end here. I basically get counterfeit. I just think my opponent always has an ace in this situation. Once I bet $300 on the turn, I feel like he's going to be folding out a lot of his drawing hands like king-jack. He maybe has a hand like queen-jack, which was a gut shot on the flop, and then open-ended here on the turn. I decided to just check it over to him, and after he throws out a $600 bet, I make a pretty quick fold. Not the best start to this poker session. However, in this next hand, the hijack raises to 75. I peel back kings in the cutoff and 3-bet immediately next to act to $250. My opponent, with about $2,000 plus in his stack, ends up making the call. So we're heads up to a queen, jack, 3 board, 2 spades. When he checks to me with the king of spades, I like to get a little bit trappy and tricky in this situation and check this flop back. Turn card, deuce of diamonds, one of the biggest breaks in the deck. He checks again, and I throw out a bet of $150 now, trying to get called by any pair, any draw, maybe a jack. I don't think he really ever has a queen in this situation. However, after about 15 seconds, he does call 150. So we're going here to the river, and we see a nice card, King of Diamonds, giving me top set. Beautiful river card giving me top set, but it is going to be harder to get paid off. Now this king should be a scare card for him if he has a hand like ace jack, jack 10, queen 10. He is not going to like this river card. Once he checks to me, I consider my options bet small, bet medium, bet big. And given the fact that this opponent likes to hero call and does not like to give up pots on the river, I decide to go big, bigger than the pot. I bet out $1,000 here on the river. I go with a big polarized bet sizing. I'm hoping that by checking back the flop, my opponent will level himself into making a light call. He thinks for over a minute and a half, and finally he comes up with a decision. Call. Picking up the action here where I call a raise with ace-3 suited in the cutoff and go 4 ways to a 5 deuce 4 2 diamond board. I look back at my hand and look at the board and realize, holy shit, I flopped a straight. Checks to me, I bet out $100, and the big blind now snap raises me to $200. He started the hand with $650, so a very short stack at this 5-10-25 game. I'm not going to get tricky in this situation. I decide to just rip it all in, and he makes a very quick call.
All in. There we go. I just once, yeah. That's me. Straight. Nice.
Well, we got it in a head versus a pair and a flush draw, but we could not hold up against a diamond on the turn, and we end up doubling this guy up for a little over a $1,300 pot. It's never fun doubling up a short stack, but if this guy's going to be calling raises and going all in with a pair and a flush draw, I am happy to double him up, hoping to take that money back later. Well, we don't have to wait long because we immediately get into a pot with the same opponent who we just doubled up. I raise ace queen, he calls, and the button calls, and we go 3 ways to an ace-high board. I decide to check out of position, and now the same player I just doubled up, he bets out $150. Button folds, and the action's back over on me. In this situation, I feel like we're going to have the best hand a lot of the time. He didn't 3-bet pre-flop, so he shouldn't have ace-king very often. He could have a lot of ace-5 through ace-jack holdings. So I decided to raise it up here for value to $400. My opponent makes a pretty quick call, so I'm getting a little concerned here. And when the turn's the 9 of diamonds, I'm not really sure what to do. The pot is a little over $900. It looks like he has about $500 or $600 left in his stack. I'm never going to be check folding in this spot, and I do think if he has a hand like ace 10 with the 10 of diamonds, ace jack with the jack of diamonds, he's going to be calling my all-in bet. So I decided to go for it and rip it all in. The cutoff player looks back at his cards and then decides to pretty quickly call my all-in. I'm not sure if I'm ahead. Let's see what happens here on the river.
So you have less than... I have an ace. Oh, wow. Nice. Very nice.
You know what's worse than doubling up a short stack? Doubling up the same player in back-to-back hands. He shows ace-king with the king of diamonds, so I was completely crushed, and I did my chip math wrong. I thought he had $600, but it turns out he has $900, which is kind of a punt in my situation. However, he only had about 35 big blinds, so really, I don't think I can ever get away from my hand. It is slightly a cooler there. I did think he would 3-bet pre-flop with ace-king, but he ends up taking this one down, winning 2 nice ones back-to-back. A little bit of run bad and a little bit of play bad has now left us down around $500 on the session. After now folding for over an hour, there's a hand that comes up where the cutoff raises to 60, button 3-bets to $180, and I peel back king 10 of diamonds in the small blind. An interesting spot here. I feel like the cutoff could be opening up fairly wide, and the button could be 3-betting fairly wide as well. So I have a decision to make. Could I flat call here in the small blind and go multi-way with king 10 of diamonds, or could I put in a 4-bet bluff? Well, I have a king blocker. I can have pocket 10s, ace king, pocket kings. So I decided to raise it up here to $500. Cutoff player folds very quickly, which is good, and now the action's back over here on the button.
I don't think in big spots, so I'll just give it to
Jacks?
eights.
The button, who happens to be my friend as well, ended up folding and made some reference to binking or sinking or winking. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but we end up taking down over $200 pre-flop here. The table gets really bad at this point. The one action player who was playing a lot of hands, the 10-5 of diamonds and the ace-king offsuit guy who I doubled up twice, is now just kind of sitting on his money, not really playing too many pots. Everybody else at the table is a pro. I'm considering leaving, but then an action player sits down directly on my left. He has over $5,000 in his stack. I look at my stack and I have about $3,500 in my stack, and I've used all the chips that I have in my bag. So I end up going to the cage to my player's bank and take out $10,000 just in case things might get wild at this table. And the very next hand, I get into a massive, massive pot. Right after putting my $10,000 of reserve chips in my bag, I raise pocket 7s and get 4 callers, 5 ways to queen, 3, 7, flopping a set. Finally, a big hand multi-way. I decide to c-bet small on this board. I make it $105. Over here on Under the Gun +1, who is the action player who sat down with over $5,000, he looks down at his hand and then decides to raise me to $290. Over here on Under the Gun +2, who is a very solid reg, I would consider him a rock style player. He goes into the tank now and eventually calls this $290 raise. Other players in the hand fold the actions back over on me. What do you do in this spot? I raised pocket 7s pre-flop, flopped a set, bet out $105, got raised to $290. A player called $290, and now what do you do here? Both of my opponents cover me. I have around a $4,000 stack. I feel like a re-raise is definitely a good option here. One, because the queen is not the queen of spades, which means someone could have a hand like queen jack of spades, ace queen of spades. One of my opponents could have a hand like pocket 3s, or a hand like 4-5 of spades, 5-6 of spades for a straight flush draw. In this situation, multi-way out of position, I feel like the best situation is just to put some more money in while you're ahead. So I raise it up here to $850. This is somewhat of a weird scenario here, having the action player raise me on the flop. He had been doing some odd things, so it's definitely not out of the question I could balance out this 3-bet here on the flop with hands like aces, kings, maybe the nut flush draw, a straight flush draw like 4 or 5 of spades or 5, 6 of spades. All those hands I could potentially take this line with. To my surprise, the action player to my left folds, but the rock now goes into the tank, and once he starts thinking here, I immediately know he must have a monster. I feel like he would fold out a lot of hands after I bet the flop and an opponent raises. So given the fact that he called 290 and now is thinking about what to do, I put him on 2 specific hands. The first one would be ace queen of spades for a top pair top kicker and the nut flush draw, and the second hand would be pocket threes. So when he calls my $850 bet, I'm just hoping for no spade here on the turn to hopefully put some more money in the middle. The reason I can narrow down my opponent's range is because we have a ton of history playing with each other. I don't think he ever has an overpair in this situation. He would be 3-betting pocket queens all the time pre-flop. He's a very solid rock player, so I don't think he's calling here with like queen 10 or queen jack. So when the turn card's the 5 of diamonds, a very safe card for us, we essentially still have the nuts. I have to figure out what I want to bet here on the turn. I count my stack and I have about $2,500 left. The pot is a little over $2,000, so I have to figure out what I want to do. If I jam all in here, the only bad thing about that is that my hand looks extremely strong, and this player definitely is capable of making big hero folds. So if I bet out a $2,500 bet after 3-betting the flop, he may hero fold a hand like ace queen or even hero fold a hand like pocket threes. So I decided to go with a smaller size bet than I made on the flop to make it look like I have a hand like aces, kings, or ace queen, and hoping to get a call from a hand like ace queen of spades or maybe even a shove by a hand like pocket threes. So I bet out here $800.
Son of a bitch. Max, I gotta have faith in you, brother.
I'll go twice. I'll go twice.
Pair the fucking board. Pair the fucking board. Watch this.
Whatever said, this guy told everyone he had 6-4.
Pair the board. 3 of hearts. Boom.
I can.
I have sevens.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow. And I had a set of 5s.
And now I'm tilted.
Good bet on the turn. Thank God you fucking pushed me out of that pot. Because I spiked the fucking set on the turn.
Well, I have to.
Set of 5s. Yeah. He doubles up through me.
My opponent ends up jamming there on the turn. I make the snap call with pocket sevens, and just like I thought, he had pocket threes for a flopped set. Pretty sick there, set over set. We end up taking down over a $7,000 pot here, a massive cooler. But what makes his hand even crazier is the action player on my left said he had pocket fives. So he would have turned a set of fives if I would have just called the raise in the flop. He was getting a massage, and I looked back at the massage girl, and she was nodding her head as well, as if she saw his hand before he folded. So can you imagine if I just called on the flop and then got set over set over set? Well, you can't really be results oriented. I feel fine with my raise. Either way, we end up scooping a massive pot here, and now we have over a $7,000 stack. Over the next hour, I don't pick up any notable hands, and then I peel back pocket fives from early position. I raise to $60. The button calls 60, straddle calls 60, and we see ace, queen, 8 flop. With fourth pair here, the straddle player checks over to me. I think this is just a give up check a lot of the time, but I'm just going to have the range advantage on this board. I can turn my hand into a bluff and try to get people off pocket 9s or an 8, pocket 7s or 6s. So I bet out small, $55. The button calls, straddle folds, heads up to the ace on the turn. Now this is an interesting spot. I don't think the button's going to have many strong aces because he didn't 3-bet me pre-flop. He shouldn't have ace-king, ace-queen, or even ace-jack. I feel like his best holdings here would be weaker aces like ace-3, ace-4, ace-5, and maybe a hand like queen-jack, king-queen, possibly jack-10, or some straight draws on the flop. So I continue for a $120 bet, and he ends up making the call. Now it's pretty obvious that my hand is no good, but when the river card comes out a king of diamonds, I think to myself, this may be a spot I want to triple barrel bluff. If he has a queen, I can put him in a very tough spot. If he has a hand like king jack, I can also put him in a tough spot. Like I said, I don't think he has a very strong ace, so if he somehow does have trips, and I bet out huge here, he could be in a very tough situation. I just have the range advantage on this board. I can have all the strong hands, so I put out a bluff of $800 here into just a $500 pot, really trying to put the pressure on his one pair hands, and maybe sometimes he hero folds an ace. He goes into the tank, starts looking over at me. He doesn't snap call, which is good, but he doesn't snap fold either. When I bet this size on the river, I'm representing a very strong hand or nothing at all. Hands like pocket queens, pocket eights, pocket kings for a full house, I may go this very large sizing trying to get called by an ace, and I'm hoping my opponent will realize that and maybe fold out a big monster hand. He goes into the tank for a while. The longer he thinks, the more my heart rate is increasing. A huge bet here on the river. This could be a massive punt. He looks down at his cards and reveals that he has an ace and folds, and we get this bluff through.
Let's see a bluff, Lex.
One time.
My fucking God.
One time.
Nice bet.
I would never show unless Sean told me to show a bluff.
Hold a big hand.
Whoa. $3:19 in the AM, and it is time for some breakfast for dinner. Little scrambled egg action going on here, and some bacon. Not bad. Well, that was a pretty fun poker session, I have to say. Things went a little bit up and down in the beginning. Won some pots, lost some pots. We got max value there with pocket kings in a 3-bet pot. Then set over set for a massive $7,400 pot there. Massive cooler. And then the last hand of the night, I triple barreled off with pocket fives on an ace, queen, 8, ace, king board for an $800 river bluff. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but somehow we got my opponent to fold an ace, so that was good. Ended up profiting $2,600 on the session. Well, as you guys can see, I've got my little buddy behind me, Rogue. His birthday is coming up. The day this video comes out, December 15th, which will be Thursday, he is turning 8 years old. So this guy right here is turning 8 years old on Thursday. Please leave a comment down below. Wish him a happy birthday. He's getting older, but he's still the same cute, loving puppy as he was the day that I got him. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, I'll see ya.